The body, or rather, the fact that the Tathagata drove away Wukong was actually to ensure that when the King of Hell came to take his life later, he could rely on the skills he learned from Bodhi to achieve true immortality. At the same time, it was to make sure that Wukong's troubles would never implicate himself. So there's a small question here. Did Bodhi deceive Wukong? Why did Wukong still face death, even though he was taught the means to achieve immortality? Wukong's original request for immortality was to learn a way to live forever and avoid the calamities of the strict military. In Wukong's understanding, the ultimate goal of immortality was to escape the jurisdiction of the King of Hell, so Bodhi taught him a set of skills. Wukong, indeed, utilized these physical means to successfully escape the jurisdiction of the strict and unyielding military. In the original text, we see Wukong taking steps. He took the names of monkeys and rats, and those with names were all crossed out and the accounts were settled. The King of Hell no longer controlled him. From the results, Bodhi indeed did not deceive Wukong. As for the first question, after explaining it, we move on to the second one. Why did the Tathagata suppress Wukong under the Five Elements Mountain? This particular part of the story is quite well known. Even those who haven't read Journey to the West know the saying that one cannot escape the Tathagata's palm. Wukong caused great trouble in the Heavenly Palace. At this time, the Jade Emperor ordered the Wandering Spirit Officer and the Righteous Saint to fetch the Tathagata from the Western Heaven. The conversation between the Tathagata and Wukong is very intriguing. The Tathagata's words in front of the forces of the Heavenly Palace were flawless. "You are a monkey who has become a spirit," so he distanced himself from the immortals and the Buddha to avoid implicating innocent people later. The position of the Jade Emperor is unshakable. I won't elaborate. Those who understand, understand. Don't speak nonsense about your master. Wukong even boasted that his skills were learned from seeking a master and friends. "If you convert to my Buddha, in front of all the immortals, I can protect you." To cherish talent. The second is to remember the old master-disciple relationship. If you fall into evil hands, it would be a pity for your original look. Because Wukong was born from the essence of the heavens, the 24 periods of the 9 palaces, and 8 trigrams, and the earth. He doesn't need to recognize the 6 relatives or care about becoming a Buddha or a saint. We can confidently say that from the very moment he was born, he exhibited a sincere nature. We can clearly see that, although the Tathagata came specifically to subdue Wukong, he still harbored hope that Wukong could turn back from his rebellious ways and stop in time before it was too late. However, Wukong had already reached the peak and found himself unable to lower his head. There was no way, so in front of all the immortals, the Tathagata pushed Wukong out of the Western Heaven Gate with one palm, and his 5 fingers became the 5 Elements Mountain, trapping Wukong underneath. Although it seemed the Tathagata was punishing Wukong by pressing him under the 5 Elements Mountain, he was actually saving him. Before returning to the Western Heaven, the Tathagata instructed the Earth God and the 5 directions to guard Wukong. On one hand, to watch over him, and on the other, to feed him iron pellets and drink. Although this was a cruel punishment in the Earth Store Sutra, Wukong, after all, had an indestructible body. It didn't harm him, but rather filled his stomach. Moreover, although the 5 Elements Mountain pressed Wukong down, it grew roots and fit perfectly, allowing Wukong's upper limbs to move. The original text indicates that it gently pressed him down without causing any harm to his body. In the 33rd chapter, when the Silver Horn King used the method of moving mountains to press Wukong, Wukong only had his 3 corpses pressed, and blood spurted from his 7 orifices. The Tathagata's suppression was too gentle in comparison, compared to Zhu Baji, who was almost beheaded for teasing Chang'e, and Sha Wujing, who was beaten 800 times and banished to the mortal world for breaking a glass lamp, and the Dragon King of Jinghe, who was beheaded for not following the heavenly rules. Wukong, who caused great trouble in the Heavenly Palace and disrupted the Peach Banquet, was only sentenced to 500 years of imprisonment. Why? Because the one who sentenced him was not the Jade Emperor, but the Tathagata. Moreover, the Tathagata placed 6 golden characters on the 5 Elements Mountain. On the surface, it was to trap Wukong and keep him inside, but in reality, it was a protective talisman for Wukong. Because Wukong said that in 500 years, no one came to see him. In the 14th chapter, we know that the Tathagata cast a spell, and no one except Tang Sanzang 500 years later could lift it. In other words, even the people of the Heavenly Palace couldn't take Wukong away and punish him according to the laws of the Heavenly Court. So, in comparison, we can see that the Tathagata's methods towards Wukong were indeed too gentle and mild. And in these 500 years, when Wukong met Guanyin Bodhisattva in the 8th chapter, who was looking for someone to fetch the scriptures, he finally understood the reason. At this moment, Wukong turned to Guanyin and said, "The Tathagata tricked me and pressed me under this mountain for a long 500 years. So it turns out that everything was actually part of Tathagata's grand plan all along. To put it positively, it means Tathagata knew the inevitable outcome before and after. Originally, there was no Bodhi. Only then did Wukong realize Tathagata had been teaching and suppressing him all along. That's the reason why he said, "Tathagata fooled me." This leads to the 34th chapter where Wukong weeps and says, "I have been a good man, and I have only worshipped 3 people. I worshipped the Buddha in the West, Guanyin in the South Sea, and my 2 masters who saved me. I bowed to them 4 times. After understanding the cause and effect, Wukong naturally changed Bodhi to Tathagata Buddha. This is the answer to the second question. The handling of the 3 Tathagatas in the True and False Monkey King chapter, understanding Tathagata's identity and his attitude towards Wukong, brings us back to the True and False Monkey King chapter. In that chapter, besides Tathagata Buddha, who knew the truth about the real and fake Wukong, there was another, which was Dizang Wang Bodhisattva's Di Ting from the underworld. Di Ting said, "The monster has a name, but it can't be revealed face to face, nor can I help capture him." Dizang Wang Bodhisattva asked repeatedly, and Di Ting said, "Buddhism is boundless." Dizang Wang Bodhisattva immediately realized and sent the 2 Wukongs to the Great Thunder Monastery to find Shakyamuni Buddha. This part is very interesting. We know that Di Ting's so-called inability to capture was just an excuse. The 2 Wukongs went to distinguish the real from the fake. The reason Di Ting didn't dare to speak, Dizang Wang Bodhisattva gave us the answer: go find Tathagata. In other words, this matter is something that cannot be spoken about or heard by others. Because if Di Ting spoke, everyone in the underworld managed by the Heavenly Palace would know. It would be reported to the Heavenly Palace, even to the Supreme Jade Emperor, who also didn't know. Only Tathagata could speak because the decision-making power of this matter lies with Tathagata. According to our previous discussion on the 2 minds, the 2 minds of Wukong are actually Wukong's views. Why did Tathagata cover the true mind? Wukong left with the deluded mind to fetch the scriptures. Here, everyone must remember that our 2 minds are different from the Confucian and Taoist human mind and Tao mind. It does not have the classification of good and evil, right and wrong. It is not that the true mind of Wukong is necessarily good. The deluded mind of Wukong is not necessarily bad or fake. Both are Wukong, but one is the true nature of the true mind, and the other is the deluded mind of the 6 dusts. The Wukong who was covered had lost all of his previous memories. I will explain the memory part later. In Black Myth Wukong, with all Buddhas annihilated and the 3 realms in trouble, Wukong sets out on the journey to the west again. This is Wukong's destiny. So far, the long foreshadowing around the True and False Monkey King in Journey to the West has temporarily ended. After explaining Journey to the West itself, and delving into its foreshadowing in detail, I believe everyone has gained new thoughts and perspectives about the plot. Here, let's start the plot interpretation and reasoning of Black Myth Wukong. After the 100 chapters of Journey to the West, it left endless imagination for the world. The creative team of Black Myth Wukong thought the same. Not only their 12 years of hard exploration, but also the complaint that adapting is fun for a while, but tears flow. This time PV3, including the plot demonstration and actual demonstration, seems to have less plot explosion and heat than PV1 and PV2, but the amount of information and content covered is definitely not inferior to the former. First, let's talk about the plot demonstration of PV3. After the 6-minute plot demonstration of PV3 was released, there were various speculations about the true identity of the female demon, especially the Old Spider. Some said that because of the inspiration from Fight the Gods, the Old Spider is Chang'e, so the protagonist here is Baji. Some said the entire PV3 is a smokescreen released by the production team. The Old Spider isn't the spider spirit from the original Journey to the West, but is based on the sister-in-law from the later version. There's also evidence of treasures. Here, I seek common ground while reserving differences, and present my views and subsequent reasoning. At the start of PV3, following the 3 big characters from chapter 72 of Journey to the West, Pansy Cave, the 7 emotions and 6 desires cause Baji to lose his shape. Some said the old demon in PV3 is Chang'e. Those who presented this view, although it may seem novel, clearly did not take the time to read the original text carefully. Do you remember what I said at the beginning? The mythological system of Journey to the West is somewhat different from the traditional Taoist and Buddhist mythological systems in our minds. In many people's minds, because of the myth of Chang'e flying to the moon, they believe that Chang'e, the fairy, is the master of the Moon Palace. But in Journey to the West, Chang'e is not a single person but refers to a group of female fairies in the Moon Palace. The master of the Moon Palace is not Chang'e. In the 95th chapter of the original, when Wukong was about to kill the Jade Rabbit spirit, he called out to Wukong to show mercy. when the walker turned to look,